Our democracy is on life support. The question we must ask ourselves now is how, in an increasingly global society and world, we can renew and revitalize that democracy. Education, I submit, is fundamental to this question. For example, should our democracy look like these pictures? Maybe you grew up in a classroom like this when you were a kid. Race and class-based segregation remains pervasive in our nation's schools. My name is Chris Suarez. I am a former teacher, education advocate, and Chicago Magnet School graduate who believes in the power of diverse schools. For diversity and equity to thrive and democracy to thrive, our classrooms should look like these, but these settings are really hard to find. Right now, polarization is at an all-time high, and collaboration is at an all-time low. Our people are in echo chambers divided by race, class, and even social media and TV networks. We have to return to first principles such as those in Brown versus Board of Education, where we learn that segregation is not democratic and that diversity is the very foundation of good citizenship. When we promoted school diversity and stayed true to the Brown ideal, achievement gaps between rich and poor, black and white, Hispanic and white narrowed. But those achievement gaps began to increase, as did international achievement gaps, as we resegregated. This happened because there has been this massive resistance that continued to this day and also through the 1980s. It included massive resistance, it included Boston busing, it included the Little Rock Nine, and so much of that pushback that we know about. And so naturally, school reform moved away from school diversity and towards other initiatives, including No Child Left Behind with teacher accountability, charter schools, vouchers, and other initiatives that had nothing to do with school diversity. Now, in more recent years, the shift has been towards pre-K. And with that, there's been a lot more emphasis towards putting more money and resources into pre-K. And that has certainly helped some kids, but again, it's not focused on the school diversity issue. Now, this is a problem because school diversity is actually at its highest point, or school segregation, is at its highest point since the 1980s. And because of that, we have districts now that are actively promoting to secede from districts as shown in that map that was behind me. Polarization is now at its worst point since the Civil War. People are afraid, angry, and frustrated with one another, and this is a key moment because we need to ask ourselves, how do we get past that? And so what happened? Was this something that was rooted in our divided schooling? And what can we still do about it? Can we promote diversity and socioeconomic and racial integration in our classrooms so that we can address this issue? The answer, I submit, is yes. And people are talking about this issue right now for that very reason. In 2015, This American Life featured a two-part miniseries focusing on this problem that we all live with, and it has really reinvigorated the conversation. Meanwhile, districts such as those in the map behind me have been focusing on promoting school diversity in a myriad of ways that were never really thought of before. And so this effort has been sweeping the nation in a new way that hadn't happened before. So to be sure, education is now focusing on school diversity, and reformers have looked at it more. But I've noticed that the millennial generation doesn't really talk about this issue. And so the question is, how do we reimagine or rebrand school diversity for the 21st century? Now, this is not an easy issue, and we have to have a national conversation about it, because if we don't, we were not going to address this divided democracy that we have in this polarization. And as Justice Marshall reminded us, unless our children begin to learn together, there is little hope that our people will ever begin to live together. I truly believe in that ideal. And so, yes, there is no one-size-fits-all solution to this problem, and diversity is not a panacea. We have to remain thoughtful about how to address this issue, and we have to learn from the past for sure. But this doesn't mean that we just give up on this critical issue. Right now, we're just too divided to avoid it, and as a product of a diverse magnet high school myself, I've seen the power of school diversity and how it can promote understanding, conversations, and equity in numerous ways. And so join me. I have founded a group called Learn Together, Live Together that's creating a diverse, bipartisan coalition that's going to focus on school diversity for the millennial generation, and I hope that you will work with me to solve this critical issue for our democracy. Thank you.